Hey everybody, I hope everyone's doing well. Today should be a really interesting review. This has been an amazing review process for me. We're going to look at the Luxman L-507Z integrated amplifier. So please do me a favor, sit back, relax, and we'll get started on this review video. So the Luxman L-507Z, this is a beast, it really is. Costs $11,000. I'll put specs up here, but the basics are, it is very, very powerful. It has a very high damping factor. It is fast, it's agile, it's interesting, and I'm probably giving you a hint on how this review is going to turn out. This is part of their new Z series of integrated amplifiers, and it introduces what they call Life's version 1.0 amplification feedback engine. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. It's basically Life's is a successor to the ODNF system they used to have, which was only distortion negative feedback system. It's interesting. I talk a lot about negative feedback, and it's a very fascinating way to build an amplifier. So, you know, kind of the basics are this amplifier delivers really high power, low distortion, and maintains a really natural, transparent sound. So we're going to take a look at the front. We're going to take a look at the back. I am going to open it up. We're going to dig around inside. So you know what? Why don't we do that next? Well, here we are looking at the front of the L507Z, and you can see it's in standby mode right now. We're going to go ahead and power it up, and the power light will flash until it settles in. We'll go along the bottom here. Separate means that we're separating the preamp and amp from one another, preamp main in. Moving coil, moving magnet, cartridge choice. You'll see that light change there. You'll see also when I do separate, it'll indicate that. Our speakers on, we can have speakers off if we're using the headphone jack. We have A-B pair or both, bass treble balance. Line straight means we bypass the bass and treble control. Mute, obviously, is mute. A 4.4 millimeter balanced headphone jack, 1/4 inch, volume control, and then our input selector. Now, what's interesting is we have some functions you'll see along here that are actually on the remote control itself. So if I want to use a subsonic filter, I can't because I'm in line straight mode, so let me go out of that. And if I want to use a subsonic filter for the phono preamp, I can. If I want to put it in mono or use loudness, it does have a loudness setting. Those controls are on the remote control, not on the unit itself. So that's a look at the front panel. Oh, by the way, there's an indicator light, obviously, for input select, and then the volume is that digital control right there. So that's the front. Let's look at the back. Well, here we are looking at the back of the 507. I'm going to start on your right. IEC power socket, control in and out for control of other devices, or for this to be controlled by other devices. Trigger in and out. We have our line 2 balanced in, and we can switch between normal and inverted phase by flipping those switches. Line 1 balanced in. Speakers B. Speakers A. This is the pre-op main in. When I mentioned that separate button on the front, that's what this does, separates these. A lot of times in older systems, you'll see like basically staples that short these out. Well, they're shorted out internally, and the separate button allows you to separate those. All the way over on the left is signal ground, phono input. Line 1 is on a very nice high quality set of RCA connectors, or RCA plugs, different than the rest. Line 2, line 3, line 4. Very nice, lots of space back here to handle nice big connectors. One issue is I do wish it had a variable pre-out to run, or a sub-out that we could run out to a subwoofer. As it is, you kind of got to do high level only. Anyway, that's a look at the back of the 507. Now, let's see if we can get in this thing. Well, here we are looking at the inside of the 507, and it is really a well-constructed unit. Now, this is a big laminated core, or what's traditionally called an EI transformer, and they can be very good. It doesn't have to be toroidal, and obviously Luxman engineered this coil and all of the circuitry inside this unit for a particular purpose. And these kinds of transformers are very low noise and excellent for linear power supplies. Now, you'll see 80,000 microfarads worth of Luxman branded capacitors. Very interesting. The design and layout of this thing is amazing. It was a beast to take apart. And there were chassis screws that were actually copper screws with black heads on them, black painted heads. And other screws had nylon bushings that held the plate on so that if there was any vibration, it would minimize that effect totally. Now, The amplifier itself uses what's called LIFES feedback, and LIFES stands for Luxman Integrated Feedback Engine System. Now, this reduces distortion in the amplification stage by over 50% compared to their previous circuit called ODNF, or Output Distortion Negative Feedback Circuit, and it avoids feeding back the original input signal, resulting in better and more natural dynamics. And I'm not a big negative feedback guy. So this is very localized, very limited amounts of negative feedback applied, only where needed. They're not going after a ton of measurements on this. They're going after sound quality. Now, each channel has 6 output devices in what's called a 3-stage Darlington triple paralleled push-pull configuration. So you've got 6 transistors per channel. You've got 3 for each half of the waveform. Very high current, very, very fast, very powerful. Again, the unit's 110 per channel into 8 ohms and 220 per channel into 4 ohms. And it has a damping factor of 300. Now remember, any damping factor really over 100 is a legitimate damping factor. Now, let's talk a little bit about this LIFES feedback engine. Unlike traditional negative feedback systems that feed a portion of the output directly back into the input, LIFES minimizes input fed feedback. Instead, it monitors the internal amplifier's performance and applies corrections at the appropriate stage rather than globally. That's a big, big difference. Maintaining transparent accuracy and microdynamic detail without introducing the phase error or compression, and that's a big thing with negative feedback, often associated with heavy feedback designs. You've heard me rail on about negative feedback amplifiers in the past. Negative feedback, large amounts of global negative feedback absolutely compress the daylights out of it, make those amplifiers sound lifeless and gutless. Now, the amplification stage, as I mentioned, is a 3-stage Darlington triple parallel push-pull. This arrangement shares the current load across multiple transistors. It improves linearity under high power, and again, delivers high power up to 220 watts into 4 ohms with very low distortion. Now, the signal paths are optimized with what they call B-line construction to reduce resistance and parasitic effects, while a loopless chassis and high-quality discrete components minimize ground-related errors and preserves signal integrity. All of this is done so you get a transparent, detailed, and dynamically engaging sound. And I can vouch for that, and I'll tell you more about it when we get to the summary part of it. But this thing is a tour de force in engineering. This is an excellent example of very high-quality audio engineering from a company with a 100-year history. So let's button this thing back up and we'll get going on the rest of this review. Well, as you can see from looking inside this thing, it's built like a tank. Very, very well engineered, very well constructed, very well thought out. Just a beautiful piece. Very much a luxury item, very much an item to aspire to. Very much like Accuphase, Hagel, although I think this has got an edge on Hagel. It is really very much a, premium product and priced accordingly, but built to a level that's just exceptional. So I want to tell you, go over the gear I used to test it, because I did find some synergies, and I think it's important you know how I tested it in case you're considering buying one, kind of what worked well and what didn't. And we'll go over all of that, the summary, and then my final thoughts, obviously, toward the end of the video. So for sources, I always use Artivana. I always run Artivana through a USB isolator before I run it into any of the DDC reclockers or DACs I used. I did use the Shanling ET3 CD transport, that's the top load unit, for CD play. I also used my vintage Harman Kardon FL8380 5-disc carousel, and I used that with the Wired for Sound Remedy reclocker. It's a Spitif reclocker. Wow, you'll get a review of that coming up. Now for DACs, I use primarily the Live Harmony and the Gustard R30, which I've had for a little bit. That's remarkable stuff. I also, for a short period of time, used the Topping D900 discrete, but only briefly. And that's an interesting 1-bit, and we'll talk more about that in the review of it, and obviously in the summary. I did use some DDC reclockers. I did use the Singzer SU2, and I did use, for just a brief period, the Matrix X Spitif 3. I also used the SMSL G1 master clock, primarily with the Gustard R30, because it's got a clock input, and there's also a clock input on the Singzer, but I didn't use it that way. For speakers, I threw everything good I had at it. The Martin Logan Impression ESL 11As, both the Magnapan 2.7i and 2.7x, Wow. And I also used, just briefly, the Bucart E50s. Wow. And then the Opera Primas, which I've only had for a short period of time, so I didn't get a lot of time with them, but I did use those. For cables, I used the Crescendo power speaker cables. I used the Jorma Prime AC power cable, which came with this unit, the company that I got this from, the Rhythm Distribution. They also distribute the Jorma cables. I used WireWorld Eclipse 10 balanced and single-ended cables. I used WireWorld Silver Sphere HDMI cables for I2S, and I used the WireWorld Ultraviolet 8 USB cables for everything. So that's how I tested it. Now, let me share with you some of the music I used. I created a listening guide and a playlist specific for this, and there'll be a Tidal, Qobuz, and Spotify link for it in the video description. But let's talk about the music and what I heard and maybe what you'll hear on your system, and then you can draw some comparisons. Well, we're going to start off with some classical music, and my first suggestion is this piece from Carlo Giuliani in the La Scala Philharmonic. It is Beethoven's 7th Symphony, 2nd movement. This is a wonderful piece of music, and I got this as a suggestion from Harley Lovegrove at Pearl Acoustics. So what I want you to observe is the strings, brass, and percussion are distinct. Everything is well defined. There's great depth and very precise transient reproduction. Very dynamic piece. Now, the 507 I found excels at natural dynamics, allowing the timpani, strings, and brass to breathe with realistic weight. There's some you sense the movement of the orchestra as it paces itself through this particular movement. The soundstage was very wide, layered with excellent depth. Violins seemed to float above the solid, grounded orchestra. They kind of were, the orchestra is a little bit behind the violins. In a traditional orchestral seating arrangement, the violins tend to occupy, as you're looking at the stage, kind of the left and center area. Strings are there, woodwinds and brass and so forth. Anyway, the violins just are absolutely beautiful. So as far as resolution goes, the detail retrieval with this amplifier is superb. Inner voices and subtle string articulations are clear without any harshness. You can hear the plucks, you can hear the bowing, you can hear that there are humans making this music. Just absolutely wonderful piece, and I highly encourage you to check it out. So let's talk about the next piece. So moving away from large orchestral pieces, we're going to go to the small ensemble jazz realm. And it's going to be Bill Evans' Trio and its Waltz for Debbie. This is an absolutely marvelous track, and the whole album is marvelous. What I want you to pay attention to is the piano, brass, and drums. They're very clear. There's a lot of accuracy in the microdynamics. There's a lot going on in there, and very good, precise stereo imaging, even though it is manufactured in the studio. As far as like sonic highlights, listen for timbre. The instruments are very warm, accurate. The upright bass has good weight. The cymbal has the beautiful shimmer without it sounding splashy, because they're using brushes on the drums and the cymbals on occasion, and the horns are very, very smooth on this. Again, very good left and right separation, good three-dimensionality in the image, again, even though it's manufactured in the studio. And listen for dynamics. There's a lot of subtle nuances going on here. Like I mentioned, microdynamics, brushes on the drums, finger snaps. Bill Evans' touch on the piano is just absolutely sublime. This is a wonderful track, and it should be very engaging and very easy to listen to. And if you listen in close, you can hear a lot going on, very much at the kind of quieter level of the song. Again, those microdynamics and, just kind of that inner detail, just beautiful. This is a great recording. So now moving into kind of the rock world of things, gotta be Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, Money for Nothing. What a great track. What a seminal track, obviously. What I want you to listen for is the electric guitars and drums are very tight. Mark Knopfler is a real fiend when it comes to accuracy and good production values. And I don't know, I can't prove it, but I think he might be a bit of an audiophile. Mid-range vocals remain distinct, and high energy passages where everybody's playing together, they're handled without distortion. It's clean, it's tight, it's very crisp. This is an absolutely outstanding recording. So sonic highlights on this are power delivery, electric guitars, have punch and drive, yet retain clarity even at higher volumes. Even when he's wailing on that thing, it sounds amazing. On the low end, the kick drums and bass guitars are taut, they're precise, very well controlled, never muddy. As I said, this is a great recording. The overall balance is mid-range vocals sit naturally without being overshadowed by any of the energetic instrumentation going on in the background. This is a great track, and at the beginning, this is the full version, not the edited version. So at the beginning, you hear Sting singing the "I Want My MTV" chorus, as it were. So again, really great track, really great recording, great album, of course. Again, Dire Straits, money for nothing. So for the next track, we're going to do vocals with a little bit of acoustic accompaniment. We're going to use Norah Jones off the album Come Away With Me, Don't Know Why. This is a great track, and she's got a marvelous voice. And what I want you to listen for is the vocals and acoustic instruments are very natural sounding. This is a wonderful recording, by the way, and that's why a lot of music enthusiasts love this particular track and Norah Jones recordings in general. The recording preserves very subtle articulations and the spatial cues of where the space where it was recorded and how she was recorded and how she was mic'd. So the vocal presence on this, the voice is very lifelike. There's a very natural timbre. There's good air and space around her voice. Just very well recorded, very well mic'd, and she's got a beautiful voice anyway. As far as the instrumental separation, the piano, acoustic guitar, and strings are very clear, but they maintain and exhibit their own individual dimensionality. It's very good. Again, the soundstage was manufactured in the studio, but the instruments are placed well. They're where you think they should be. They stay where they're supposed to be, but they have room to breathe, I guess is the best way to put that. And as far as an emotional engagement on this track, the micro dynamics and micro details, the lip movements, finger slides on the guitars, they're easily audible and very rewarding to listen to. This is a great track. Well, as you saw, and as I mentioned when we looked at the unit front, back, and inside, this has got a really good phono preamp on it. I used it with my standard analog rig and a Audio-Technica moving coil cartridge, and I used this recording. It's one of my favorites. It's Ella and Lewis, and the song is Cheek to Cheek. And I have a very, very good copy of this, and the vinyl playback was clean. There was no induced noise in the phono preamp. Sometimes you can get that, especially on moving coil, because it's got to magnify that tiny, tiny voltage so much. So the playback was absolutely clean and accurate, and the transient response was really good. Almost no background noise. I mean, you get a little bit from the actual record itself, but no induced noise. The phono stage was very quiet, detailed, very full-bodied. I thought that the surface noise from the record was very well controlled. And I also thought the transient response allowed any of the percussive hits to really feel immediate and right then and there. And the warmth of that analog signal was preserved beautifully, but it didn't sacrifice any speed or precision. Vocals and instruments were reproduced really naturally with great detail. And this is an old recording, but a very good recording. And it just sounded warm and natural. And I was very impressed with the moving coil, moving magnet phono preamp in this. And if I owned this piece, I probably would not get a separate phono preamp for it. Anyway, that is all of the music that we're going to talk about. Why don't we do this? Why don't I tell you a little bit about some of the details on the amp and its sonic signature, and then I'll summarize everything. Well, because of the price category that this unit occupies, I want to do kind of a more well-defined, I was making notes while I was listening, and I want to kind of go over those a little bit to give you a better insight in sound quality other than just saying it's warm and smooth and all that other stuff. So I'm trying to be a little bit more precise on this. So from a sound quality standpoint, dynamics, this amplifier is capable of delivering clean, controlled peaks without any compression. It was effortless, even on the Magnepans, which aren't easy to drive. No problem whatsoever. As far as resolution, very detailed retrieval of the microdynamics in instruments and vocals. You could listen in as deep as you wanted to, and provided you had a really good source. Now, again, for a lot of the review, I did use the Live Harmony, and I used the Gustard R30, and you may or may not have seen the review of that yet, but both excellent DACs, both very revealing, and this just let those shine through beautifully. As far as balance, the tight bass, really fast, are very accurate mids without any stridency or any sense of compression, very clear highs across a very wide soundstage. So, and more in the summary, I'll talk about the overall sonic character. The other thing I really liked was, and I thought it was very linear because I listened at a variety of different volume levels, is that 88-step electronic attenuator volume control we saw when we opened it up, I thought really maintained very linear response no matter where the volume was set. So the overall sonic character of this, I mean, it is very transparent, very neutral, very low distortion, super clean, tight, controlled bass, clear mids, excellent reproduction in high frequencies. And again, I'll go a little more into that. It's got a very wide, deep, and realistic soundstage, very powerful dynamics. It does such a good job at reproducing transients, but also the subtle parts, just the little nuances you hear in music were really, really well reproduced. Just overall, an outstanding piece. Now, let me tie it all up and put it all together in my final thoughts. So as I go through my final thoughts here, I'm also going to share with you some synergies that I discovered, some equipment synergies, so you've got an idea. I mean, at $11,000, you need to put some, obviously, price-appropriate gear on this. So one of the magic setups with this was this unit, the Gustard R30, no reclocker on it, and no master clock, because I don't think the G1 really does much. But with the Martin Logan Impression ESL 11As, wow, what an amazing combination. The R30 has a little extra detail in it, and this has got this, and I'll talk more about the individual sound of this, but that combination was absolutely magic. The Martin Logans in this and that Gustard, just wonderful, beautiful sound. Great, immense soundstage, all of that stuff. And again, I'll go more into detail as I kind of summarize everything. So when I'm doing my summary, you can assume that some of what I'm referring to talks about this particular combination. Then I hooked the Magnapan 2.7 eyes up to this, and that was wonderful. Maybe not quite the same as the Martin Logans as far as subtlety and texture and nuance and things like that. Very close. 2.7 eyes are really good. Good bass on them and everything else. Not as low a bass, because the Martin Logans obviously have powered bass module subwoofer kind of arrangement on them. But a really good soundstage. Not as big as the Martin Logans, but really close. Wonderful sound. Beautiful sound. Those are really cool speakers. Now, Magic City. When I put the 2.7Xs on this, the angels sang, the heavens parted, I felt like I could walk on water. It was a magic combination. The 2.7Xs with that upgraded crossover system in them, Mick Butcher did an amazing job designing a crossover system. That combination, and with the live harmony and the Singzer SU2 DDC reclocker, man, that was special. Really unique, really wonderful. Now, it is very hard to say best about anything. One of the ways you can think of it is, you can look at a Porsche 911 GT2 and a Porsche 911 GT3. Which one's best? They're both best for their intended purpose. They're both best for their intended customer. They're both amazing, well-engineered, magic cars. They're just amazing to drive. There's no best. There's just there's different shades of best. And that's what we've got here, although I will say right up front, this is the best integrated amplifier I've ever heard. Is it better than the Hagel H590? Yes. Is it better than the Solnote A2? Yes. Is it better than my Advanced Paris A12 Classic? Yes. Is it better than the Rogue Pharaoh? Yes. Is it better than some of the separates that I have in? And on some of the really good, really high-end ones, it runs a close second, if not very similar. The thing I like about the integrated is everything's in one box. It's easy to use. It's easy to connect. Just wonderful. So overall sonic impressions on this thing is immensely powerful. It had no trouble driving any of the speakers to whatever volume levels I wanted, and the dynamics, the transients were just unfettered. It was amazing how quick this amplifier can respond. Now, I had a predisposition being a high-end Japanese amplifier that was going to sound like other high-end Japanese amplifiers, which have this kind of annoying tendency to be thin in the bass. The Soul Note, good amp, a little thin in the bass. Any of the Rotel stuff, super thin in the bass. Rotel couldn't carry this amp's water. As far as like Accuphase, I haven't tested an Accuphase or had any great deal of time with any current Accuphase product, so I can't comment on that. But this, I think, compares favorably against any of the other amplifiers in its price category, integrated amplifiers. It's better than the Rogue Pharaoh. This is an absolutely, truly remarkable amplifier, and if I had the money, I'd buy one. So bass was just as deep and as low as the speaker system would go. This held nothing back to the speakers. At that point, you're dealing with whatever the limitations of the speakers are. And again, I thought it was going to be thin in the bass. This had a very full, very detailed, very warm, very articulate, very well-textured bass response. All the way, the whole frequency range was just beautifully reproduced. Now, again, being a high-end Japanese amplifier, a lot of them can be a little bit exciting in the mid-range and lower treble range. This isn't. Smooth, detailed, very natural. Actually slightly warm, not warm like an Advanced Paris or not warm like a tube unit might be, but just a beautiful smoothness to it with all of the detail and all of the articulation. I mean, this is a different level of product. This is not something that I get to listen to every day, and I got some really good stuff. There is just a nuance and a subtle amount of detail that just differentiates this from the more mundane products out there. This is a very special, very unique, very, very good integrated amplifier. It is the best I've heard in this room, maybe one of the best I've ever heard. Just remarkable. Imaging, huge, wide, deep, very good focus. Excellent instrument focus, not laser sharp, and I don't care about laser sharp, but I could draw an outline around each individual instrument, even on the mass strings and the pieces in the Beethoven 7th. You could hear every instrument individually. You could follow each instrument individually with more precision than anything yet I have heard or reviewed for you guys. It's just, it's an end game piece. It's a total end game piece. It could be, you could put anything you want to on it. Put a big expensive pair of speakers on it, $30,000, $40,000, no problem. Not even a little bit. I did run, and I don't know if I mentioned it, I did run the TAD ME1TXs on it for just a brief period of time, and it made those sound better than anything else I had ever plugged them into here in my studio. So it's just an absolute gem. Immensely powerful, huge damping factor. It took control of everything that I plugged into it. Just an amazing piece. You know, if you're looking for a very engaging, super high performance, timelessly elegant integrated amplifier, this is it. This is my recommendation. This is going to be Amplifier of the Year for 2025, I think. Maybe. Integrated for sure. God, it's beautiful. Oh! You owe it to yourself to get it, if you get a chance to listen to it. Absolutely. Anyway, that's my review of the Luxman L-507Z. When I do these kinds of reviews, I consider them kind of like, I used to look at Road and Track and Car and Driver and, look at the new, Corvette or Ferrari or whatever. I'd watch Top Gear and, see the boys hooning around in a Ferrari Enzo or a Pagani Huayra. And it was interesting and fun because I love that stuff. I love automobiles. And that's kind of what this is. This is a look at the high end. Maybe not something that any of us can ever afford, but maybe something we can aspire to. And I think it's always intriguing and engaging and, fun to look at what is at the top of its market. And this is definitely at the top of its market. And that's really the reason for these reviews is, it's fun to look at expensive stuff, even when we can't afford it. A lot of us are watch nuts and we like looking at the, Rolexes and, the Patek Philippe's and nothing that we could ever afford, but it's fun to see that technology. And that's what I think these kinds of reviews I do are kind of designed to do. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I mean, hopefully, if you have the wherewithal and the resources and you're looking for a really good amp, go buy this one for sure. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of explain that review, to kind of head off some of the silly comments that I sometimes get when I do expensive gear. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully consider giving me a like and consider subscribing to the channel. That would be wonderful if you did that. Hopefully you'd consider ringing the bell so you get notified the next time I put out a video. Your view and your subscription does count a lot. It shows manufacturers like the folks at Luxman that we've got a good community and a good channel, and it's worthwhile for them to loan me gear to talk about and share with all of you guys. So please consider subscribing. I would like to take a moment to give special thanks to my current channel members and current subscribers. Your support has been invaluable. Thank you so much. There will be a link to Luxman's website should you want to do a deeper dive or find out more information about their other products as well. There will be, in the spirit of full disclosure, an affiliate link to our good friend Kevin at Skylabs in Des Moines. He is a fully fledged authorized Luxman dealer. So if you're interested in purchasing one, there will be a link in the video description for that. In the pinned comment and video description will be a link if you'd like to join the channel membership link. There is a link to the community post playlist. Please check it out. There's some great music there. There are some dwindling number of affiliate links in the video description. You guys know how that works. Comment, let me know your thoughts. Yes, I know it's expensive. And hopefully I covered that in my little bit of a disclaimer. This is a wonderful piece. It is, you know, I'm a very fortunate person to be able to get to play with gear like this and get to experience it and get to have it at least in my life for a short period of time. And if you're in the market for something like this, you need to check this product out. So anyway, please comment and don't ask me to compare it to some fun fight, please. I think I've covered all the bases on the L-507Z from Luxman. Yeah, I have. Please consider liking. Please consider subscribing. Always comment. Follow me on Instagram if you want to. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and I always tell you to do the same thing, but please find some time today to put on the music you love and just sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself and get a little bit of a timeout. Give yourself a timeout. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really hope you have a wonderful day.